Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Carrie Nardini, a creative entrepreneur who really knows how to hit the bullseye. But first, let's hit the bullseye, and we'll talk about something that's close and near and dear to what Carrie does. I want to talk about pop-ups. A pop-up retail space is a temporary space that could feature a sample sale one day and host a private cocktail party the next evening. The trend involves popping up one day, then disappearing anywhere from one day to several weeks or months later. These shops, while small and temporary, are used by companies to build interest in their product or service and seed their product with cultural influencers, like Carrie mentioned, and Carrie is one of those, and she mentioned how she has many others in her network in episode 1. Companies can engage customers through a unique environment that generates a feeling of relevance and interactivity. Pop-ups are often used by marketers for seasonal items such as Halloween costumes and decorations, Christmas gifts, Christmas trees, or fireworks, allowing brands to capture foot traffic without committing to a long-term lease. A little bit of history. Pop-up retail began to expand in 2002 when discount retailer Target took over a 220-foot long boat at Chelsea Piers for a 2-week stay on the Hudson River that coincided with Black Friday. It extended into other genres around 2009 when the pop-up restaurant, temporary restaurants popping up in various locations, began growing in public interest and frequency. Here in Pittsburgh, Project Pop-Up Downtown is a program of the Mayor's Office in conjunction with the Urban Redevelopment Authority, Department of City Planning, and Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. Over 90 artists, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits submitted proposals to activate downtown storefronts. Finalists were invited to pop into downtown for limited engagements. These finalists received grants with which they occupied vacant stores in downtown throughout 2012. After the pilot year, 3 of the pop-ups signed long-term leases and can still be visited today. Project Pop-Up was envisioned to be replicated, and its reach includes one-time events and programs to create strong public places in downtown Pittsburgh. Whether it's a nonprofit endeavor, a seasonal offering, or a brand-building opportunity, pop-ups are a great way to hit the bullseye, and our guest is going to talk about some of the creative stuff she's led and partnered with others on that tie back to this concept. The No BS Show is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/NoBS. Try a book like The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. You can download it for free today. audibletrial.com/NoBS. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. As I said, our guest today is Carrie Nardini. She's a marketing, fundraising, social media manager, and events organizer, skilled in coordinating multiple projects simultaneously, and really is a creative entrepreneur. And she'll tell you what the definition is in her eyes of that. She's the founder of I Made It Market, director of A Fair in the Park, and director of Neighborhood Flea. Carrie, walk us through all this stuff that you do.
Okay, so it all started with I Made It Market in 2007. And then someone approached me who had followed I Made It Market from Cleveland, a woman named Stephanie, and she wanted to do a pop-up urban flea market in Cleveland. So I started working with her with some small creative entrepreneurs in Cleveland, and also in working with the St. Clair Superior neighborhood. And often I do work with neighborhood development corporations and groups and community groups and chambers of commerce. And so we created the Cleveland Flea, which Stephanie leads, and it's incredibly amazing. And so after that experience, I realized that Pittsburgh would be great to start one of these of my own here. And so I founded the Neighborhood Flea. And so the really cool thing is that the I Made It Market and Neighborhood Flea have some people that mix and mingle between the two, but they each have their own personality. And so it's a different experience shopping each one. The Flea happens in the Strip District. It has food trucks, vintage. It has plants, a local farm. It has antiques and housewares, all kinds of funky, crazy stuff, including handmade.
When does it happen?
It happens on the second Sunday of each month from May through October.
Wow. Okay.
And it's outdoor, it's pop-up. So it's something that we do during those months where we can really be outside semi-comfortably. And the I Made It Market happens all over the city all year long. And so it's all handmade. So we want to make sure that we are working with people who are making their own wares. And so a fair in the park is something that came about this year. The Craftsmen's Guild of Pittsburgh was looking for a new director for their 47-year-old fine crafts fair that happens in Mellon Park. And I applied for the job after some people sent it to me because I was a fan of this event since I was little, and I enjoyed bringing my son there and experiencing it and shopping these fine artists, which is a different genre. Some of my people with I Made It Market are fine artists, but generally it's more in a different kind of genre that's considered craft versus fine art, which is a whole other argument all in of itself. But the Craftsmen's Guild has been putting this show on for 47 years. And so it has its own history and it has its own personality. And so I was really flattered to be able to take this, and it has a high production value and it's really wonderful. And so I enjoyed that this year and learned that it was way more work than I initially had anticipated.
If I'm someone that has never done any of the three, what's your advice to try to get someone to try it that maybe just hasn't even given it a thought?
So one of the things that we do is we try to keep our costs for the vendors on the low side. And we try to also help mentor people through the process of getting started because they might be nervous to actually get started. They might not have a tent or a table or know what they're doing or wonder about business licenses and taxes. And so through my marketing services, I try to shepherd people along and make it so that it is accessible to them. So we have events that happen at different price points. And so some are more likely to get people who are just starting, and people will reach out and talk to us about it. But it is an interesting process that sometimes people will look at the event for maybe 6-8 months, a year before they take the leap. And they're like, I've been wanting to do this for so long. And I always say, why didn't you reach out? Because we would be happy to help you, hold your hand along the way.
So give an example of someone who's just done that recently. You don't have to go by name or anything, but just what their idea was and how you helped them.
So there's so many people over the years. I would say somebody recent would be a Bath and Body person. So we have many different genres, and Bath and Body is one of them where you have to have certain insurance because you're making a product that goes on somebody's body.
Okay.
And there are packaging options out there, but there's only so many. So it's really up to your story, your branding, how you do your packaging to really appeal to people whenever there are other people making similar products. You sort of, until you try a Bath and Body product, you can't really tell if it's for you or not. So you have to be the person that, breaks that seal. Someone really wants to try your product. So there's a number of different ways to go about that. So I worked with someone to help them think through some of those things and how they design their layout and their display. And that's something that our events allow people to do a lot of, is to work on that, because they have multiple options to interact with people at different events. And so they can try different things. Whenever I was selling my jewelry, I noticed that when I used this one display, people would touch my items and buy them. Every other display I used, nothing. I mean, I had some sales, but it was way less than when I had these specific displays out that gave some height and depth to my table. So those are the types of things that I worked on with her.
Give me an example of that though. So like you were selling your items, and when you changed it, just describe it even more so the audience might be able to picture what you changed that made us want to touch it.
So this was in 2007 and 8. So it was a long time ago, but I made regular jewelry, earrings, rings, necklaces, but I made these things called zip pulls, which were zipper pulls, and they were mostly meant for kids and sort of as an adornment for a hooded sweatshirt or a jacket or something. It just clipped onto your zipper, and it was sparkly, and there were different kinds, and some of them had bells, and it was just a cute thing. So I found these 2 Christmas tree-like displays that were new from Target, but at Goodwill. They had the tags on them, and they had a circle to them. They were just a I don't know, it's a metal structure with these semicircles to hold Christmas cards. So it was in a Christmas tree shape, and it was meant to hold Christmas cards. But when I hung my zipper pulls on this specific thing, people touched them, they picked them up, they took them off, they tried them on, they put them in their hands, they, did all the things you want them to do and bought them. But when I had them in flat cases, jewelry cases on a table, not so much. People weren't as interested, even if I had a display model of how it would work that was 3D and a little bit higher and things like that. So there's a lot of trial and error, but over the years, I've been able to work with people and find people that are really good at this to help people learn how to do their displays. And now, over the years, there's so many more tools. There's Pinterest, there is Etsy, there's Facebook and Instagram. There's all these places where people are showing their displays, and you can get a lot of ideas from how people are displaying their work that inspire you to do something very unique of your own.
Now you've gone through how you help a vendor. Mm-hmm. How do we as consumers hear about the events?
So when we first started out, it was the term guerrilla marketing was being used a lot, and social media was in its infancy. So our first website for I Made It Market was actually MySpace. And so it was something we could get up and running really quickly. And that's how we got the word out, along with Nina created our flyers at first. We printed them out, and we sort of had what now, street teams. And we went out and we went to different events and places and all over the city. And one thing I really enjoyed was I would flyer different neighborhoods, and I would do it myself and talk to the small business owners. And so there's a lot of different customers that we target. There's small businesses that are looking to find people to stock. There's community groups. There's customers that are shopping. There are people that are interested in art and craft. There are the vendors. So we have a lot of different customers that we're marketing to. So we do press releases and traditional marketing, as well as some of these other more creative options, and being at different events. And there is all of the social media. And since we're very visual, it's a visual thing, people looking at these different items and shopping, and they're all very colorful and beautiful. And so Instagram has been really great for us as well.
Are there some of those locations you want to say now? So in case someone's listening, they want to actually check out some things online, what's your Instagram account?
Oh, sure. So our Instagrams are I Made It Market and Neighborhood Flea. We're also on Twitter, although as one of your other guests had pointed out, you have to be certain places, but they're not necessarily where you spend your time. And I'm not a huge Twitter person. Mm-hmm. So I haven't spent as much time on Twitter, but we do have people that that's their thing and they stick to it. And so we put our messaging out there and talk to people that way. But mostly, and those are also, that's NBHD for, neighborhood, FLEA for our Twitter, and I Made It Market for our Twitter. And then Facebook, we have pages that are, just our name.
You're referencing Megan Spear of Marketing Support Network, a social media guru who her big takeaway for all the listeners was you don't have to be everywhere, but anywhere you are, you better be good.
Yes.
And so you're doing that because you're saying Instagram sounds like it might be your major place. So you're putting a lot of effort in Instagram and Facebook. Mm-hmm. And while you're touching Twitter, you're there because you feel you kind of have to be, but you're knowing that the other ones are where you put your effort.
And I believe she had spoken about LinkedIn as well. And it's interesting because we have some private Facebook groups for the people in our networks, and we do, ask a lot of questions to them there. It's a really great place to get feedback. And so I talked about LinkedIn in there a little bit, and it's not such a big thing for a lot of my crafters, but I just love it. I think it's from the marketing side of me. I love LinkedIn, and I've connected with people. And I think that my development job in Philadelphia came as a result of, being on LinkedIn.
I love LinkedIn as well.
The No BS Marketing Podcast with Dave Mastovich is brought to you by Mass Solutions. Put our 3-step No BS process to work for you. Visit masssolutions.biz today to take your marketing to another level. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.
We are with Carrie Nardini on the No BS Marketing Show, hearing about all the different target markets she has, how she reaches them and communicates with them. She talked in episode 1 about how the importance of leadership and communication. That's what this show's all about. Now we're going to move into what's the big idea. And I often say, you know, when it comes to messaging, we have to understand both our why or reason for being and our customers' why or reason for buying. We then need to crystallize that into one big idea, one memorable message or theme that makes an emotional impact on our target audiences. So, Carrie, whether it's for you personally or your multiple endeavors, what's the big idea?
So mine would be, if you don't try, you'll never know. Because that's been something, a motto that sort of led me in my career, is talking about mistakes and making mistakes and taking leaps. That is something that can hold you back a lot from reaching your potential. And right now I'm trying to grow in a different direction. And so I need to break through that too and think about that. But if you don't try, you don't know. And if you're doing something for yourself, like you had mentioned, you know, you're accountable to yourself. But I also feel very accountable to my customers and my vendors because I want to do right by them. But in order to do right by them, I can make better, bigger opportunities by taking these risks and trying. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my takeaway.
And, you know, talk a little bit about that because, and I guess what I would say is some listeners might go, yeah, you're just that way. You're able to try things and you jump out and you make the leap. And so do you, Dave. But put it in perspective for them because we were joking earlier about how we both still feel that nervousness, even though we've been doing this entrepreneur stuff for a long time. Talk about that.
Well, so I guess my other takeaway would be slow and steady wins the race and do one thing every day. And a lot of mentors and business consultants will say that, but I truly do believe that. You'll ask later, so I might jump the gun a little here, but what is a tool that I would suggest? And I personally have used Asana and other team software, but I like a very simple app called Wunderlist. It's Wunderlist. And it is literally a free list making app, but it has some extra bells and whistles, but I put in there different lists. Some are shared with my team. And I have one that is goals that I want to achieve and things that I need to do every day. And so that helps keep me on target and to say that by doing one little thing every day, even if I'm not feeling very brave that day, at least I made some effort, some small step, and eventually I will get there. Because if you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're going. So you can change your goal later down the road, but you need to know where you're going and have an idea in mind so that you can hit that target.
Talk a little bit more about Wunderlist, though. How did you stumble across it and how long have you been using it and some more specifics?
So I worked with two ladies, Emily Levinson and Kate Stoltzfus, and we founded Propel, which is a entrepreneurial network for women in Pittsburgh. And I'm not sure if it was Kate or Emily, one of them introduced me to Wunderlist, but I haven't been able to stop using it since. From Propel because my things were growing. And again, with the prioritizing, figuring out where to put your time, it was just, I wasn't fulfilling my part of the partnership there. So I stepped away and it was a wonderful experience. I loved it. And I still go to Propel events and I encourage other people to do that as well. But as my business was growing, I have to stay organized. And so Wunderlist helps to keep me organized. And people have different ways of doing it. My husband jokes that whenever I had a paper calendar, I was way more organized. But so I've been playing around with paper calendars and my Google Calendar and Wunderlist, but I really end up going back to Wunderlist. And I love, some people have that satisfaction of checking it off. And even if it's not on paper, it's in here, it saves your checked off items too. So if you need to go back and look like this time last year, this event last year, what did I do? It's still saved in there. It's archived. So you can kind of go back and take a look.
It's interesting you say that. I'm a big Franklin Covey proponent. And I was really, when it was just the Franklin Planner before Stephen Covey and the two companies merged. And I went away from that years ago. And I joke about this because this dates me, but I was the first ever Palm Pilot had the Franklin system in it. And I remember I wasn't like happy. Like I was just more like moaning or whiny. And one person I know that's an organizational consultant, that's his full-time life.
Oh, I need to meet him.
I'll introduce you to him, Dennis Snedden, good man. He said to me, Dave, your problem is that when you went away from the paper Franklin planner, you weren't getting the satisfaction of the checking. And I said, but I'm still clicking the check. And he goes, that won't be the same. So I went back to, it's the only thing I do really on paper because I have so much stuff on the cloud, but I still actually do the daily Franklin planner because I was unhappy because I wasn't getting the satisfaction of the physical check.
Yeah, I joke that I'm a hoarder of information products, but also of calendars. I have so many planners that I've tried, and I've tried different systems. And I have a friend who is, she's in nursing school now. She was a tech PR firm owner and changed her career path. And her calendars are just gorgeous. And she shares them on Facebook, and I'm so jealous of them because it brings me back to a time when I used to do that and actually like paste city paper articles into my calendar. And it's nice to go back and see those. But this with Wunderlist, you can also assign to people that you share a list with. You can set a deadline. You can add links. You can add subcategories and different subtasks. And so I feel like I can get it all done in there. And then you get a notification in your email when someone completes one of their lists. So if someone on my team does something, I know.
Well, one of the things that's really tough to do, because today it's tough to do just because of all the options and apps, but it was tough to do for other reasons 20, 30, 50 years ago, is one of the major theories of the Franklin system and now Franklin Covey system is you should have one system. And so I would tell people, if you don't like Franklin, I don't care. But if you truly want to get organized, pick one system and use it, which is really tough though, because you have Gmail and you probably have a calendar there if you're using Gmail. And then I still have the Franklin system for my daily activities. So I'm actually breaking that rule. But where I find is if you do have multiple places that you're putting stuff and you have this and that and your Post-it notes here, that's when there's more of a likelihood of something to slip. So that theory from 50 years ago probably was pick a system and live with one system.
And there's the people that have inbox zero and everything. I was just going to look at my husband picked up my phone to get something for me. And he said, you have a little bit of a problem here because you have 24,050 unread messages. And so part of that is that part of my system is marking something as unread that I need to follow up with or putting it in Gmail as a task. And so these are things that need to be archived, obviously, but it's again, that like information hoarding, that I just want to know that I have access to those things.
Well, if you really wanted to aspire, I'm an inbox zero.
Oh, it's
person.
So scary.
I'm an inbox zero person, but
so
I have something that possibly could help you reduce that number. And it's right in Gmail is Boomerang. And if you use Boomerang, you can like take an email that isn't valid today, but you know is going to be valid tomorrow, and you can have it come to you tomorrow morning again. So then it's not showing up as unread and pops in when you're more apt to read it. Or if you're in, like if I'm doing the podcast and I got an email right before the show, I'll boomerang it for 3 hours later. So when I'm done with the show and everything comes back, that's one way to have it pop back and remind you, as opposed to the sheer volume of 24,000. You might never get back to see one that's in there.
So as I had mentioned, one of the things that I waited, in my opinion, for myself, if I were consulting myself on something, is that I waited too long to create my team. But now I have someone who can check my email and alert me if there's something that needs my immediate attention, or potentially she can, fulfill the request. So I'm working on a new system.
It's smart. That's smart. And I feel the same way as you. A lot of times I hold back, especially on hires. I've held back on hiring here at Mass Solutions, which I didn't do. That was one of my hallmarks at the UPMC position and the Duquesne position and other positions, was I wasn't afraid to pull the trigger on people. And I didn't take it so bad if someone didn't work out. But for whatever reason, when it's our own company, I think it's that much harder to put someone on your team and say they're now part of this team. That's your name, your company. And then if it fails, it's completely on you and you take it much more personal. So that has slowed me down. That's a rationalization. I still have to fix it. I absolutely have to fix it. I'm admitting that. But that's part of where my strange head trash has been. Yeah,
I have that same thing. And being a small business and having started all of my businesses from zero, there was never any investment. And I come from a history of my family having a small business growing up. They had a wholesale business in Uptown, and also my grandmother had a retail outlet for that in Braddock whenever my dad was little. And so I have this mentality of the times changed and their business was a wholesaler, and wholesalers were now no longer necessary. So they were working on shifting their business to go move with the times. And so that's something I've thought about a lot, and also about not having sort of a stock. So that's sort of where my pop-up came from. But now I have an office now, and we're going to start doing things in our office and potentially having some things for sale, and, working on some different things. And so it feels good to have done that, even though my initial thoughts were to never have sort of like a base.
Now, you called yourself a marketress, I think you said.
Yeah.
I'm also going to call you the queen of pop-ups here in Pittsburgh, and I love it because I think we need more of it. So I really feel you've touched on a market that's ripe to grow, and you're doing it the right way. So I want to make sure I give you the opportunity. Is there anything I didn't ask you, or anything you want to talk about that you haven't yet?
I would say for everybody to sign up for my email newsletters on my websites, because email marketing is another one of my marketing efforts that I didn't mention. But also to really support local businesses. The taxes stay local. You're helping families. We have people who started by just popping up at a 6-foot table at our events, and then they grew to have a team, and then they grew to have a retail space, and they're doing wholesale and have retail spaces. And to me, it's a celebration. Even if I had a tiny part in helping them with that, it makes me feel really, really good to know that these people are succeeding in their businesses, and that they're doing something that makes them really happy, and they're contributing to our neighborhoods.
We'll put it on the show notes, but go ahead, give them, where do they sign up for the email newsletters? On
our websites, there are areas to sign up. On imadeitmarket.com, there's 2 buttons. One is a general email list to find out when our events are happening, and when we have something we really want you to know about. We don't over message people. And then there is one that says for makers. And so we have a special email that is just for more frequently to let people know when we have events that are opening for application. That's the first place it goes. And then at the Neighborhood Flea, there's also a space for our newsletter. And that way we can also update people and share these stories that we're writing and teaching people about these small businesses.
Really cool stuff going on. That's Carrie Nardini. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes, plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Little podcast button there. Also, sign up for light reading. You'll receive valuable strategies every other week to improve your marketing and transform your message. It really is light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions.